Thank you. Now the question is this microphone on? Can you hear me? Okay. I don't have the same accent as Paula, but I do have an accent, since I'm from Sweden. And yeah, that's pretty much me. I've been an MVP for 13 years. I install Windows in various locations around the globe. And when I don't do that, I drive cars. Now, let's talk about Windows Server 2008 R2. Because 2008 R2 is doomed to die in the year 2020, and it needs to be upgraded. How many of every server around the globe is running 2008 R2, do you think? About 50%. Half of every Windows server globally is a 2008 R2 server. And they need to be migrated. This is the upgrade path. There is another path, and that's the migration path. You can migrate from anything. And one of the issues we have is that it's domain controller, it's file servers, SQL servers, web servers. And when I talk with customers, they go like, yeah, we know. We really know. And the plan is we don't have a plan, and we are getting scared, and we don't know what to do. But you need to do something. Yes, yes, I'm looking for a new job. That's the plan, to leave it to somebody else. Now, Microsoft does know this, so there are things to make it easier to migrate. Another thing we have is this. They used to have this long-term servicing channel and the semi-annual channel, and they still do. It's just they have changed the purpose for it 4 times. Meaning that the message we had last year has nothing to do with this year. And the message for 6 months ago is not the same thing. This is very simple. They have decided that the semi-annual channel for Windows Server is only meant to be used for one single purpose: run modern applications. If you use Windows Server for anything else, like file server, print server, hypervisor, SQL server, Exchange server, Active Directory, domain controller, something like that, then you need to run LTSC. Because they don't even provide hardware drivers for the SAC releases anymore. It's just meant to be a container, and that's pretty much it. So that means that we're going to run LTSC. And LTSC currently is either 2016, release 1607, or Server 2019. Now, if you try to download Windows Server 2019, you can't. It was available for 2 days. Then they pulled it back. Seems to be an issue with that version. Yes, it is. They also have the same problem with Windows 10. Now, we have customers asking us, when can we start using Windows Server 2019? And I tell them that the truth is very simple. In the beginning of next year. But we need to play with it now. Yes, play. Play is fine. Using it in production, no way. Why? Drivers, firmware, testing, certification, verification takes approximately 4 months to complete. So you have 4 months to learn about Windows Server 2019. You even have 6 months to learn about Server 2019. If you put it in production and you have an issue and you call me, I will laugh for about 15 minutes and then I will hang up the phone. It's not going to work as expected. It takes a while. We run it in test, in validation, and we perform a lot of reinstallation every day just to verify that everything works. That's what we do. We assume it's going to work around Christmas time. That means that if I have a customer today that needs to have a hyper-converged cluster, they're going to get 2016. Can you upgrade a 16 to 19? Yes, you can. Is it easy? Fairly easy. Not that difficult. The things they are focusing on for 2019 is very simple. It's the hybrid connection. Nobody really believes that everybody's going to go to the cloud. Nobody really believes everything is going to be on-premise either. Everybody believes that we will have some stuff locally and we will have some in the cloud. And that kind of makes sense. Because the cloud is meant for the modern application and modern workload. Does any one of you have a SQL server? Because that is legacy. That's old stuff. Anybody running Active Directory? Of course you have. That's legacy. That's old stuff. I would say that 99% of everything you have is considered to be old crap. It doesn't mean it's bad. It means that that is what we built our environment on. That's how we built infrastructure. The future is actually serverless. But the future is the future. We have something called today, and today we have what we have, and that needs to run still secure and all that stuff. So the focus is to be able to do a hybrid data center. Move what you can move and leave everything else. Hyperconverged is the other focus area, because building a data center the old traditional way with SAN and all that stuff, that's going to go away because it's too expensive. Security is extremely important. We had Paula here before. She talked about security. Security doesn't mean we just need to have a secure operating system. We actually need to assume breached. We need to assume that somebody can reach in and access the hypervisor. We need to assume that people can do things they're not supposed to do. That's the assumption. And the only thing you need to protect is two things, data and identity. You can't really protect the operating system anymore. You can't protect the network. Protecting the network is like, this is a secure highway. It's a highway. It can't be secure. It's a road. It's just a road. Well, it's a secure. No, it's a road. Can't be secure. And we also need to make sure that the application works. So talking about this, Azure Backup, Site Recovery, Storage Migration Services, Windows Admin Center, hyperconverged, going from this old to this new, modern way of doing it. When it comes to security, shielded VMs for Linux, ATP, Exploit Guard. They have something called System Guard Runtime, which is kind of cool. And when it comes to security, it's actually this that becomes a real issue. Running Hyper-V is very nice. The problem is that everybody can access the hypervisor, can also access everything on it without anybody knowing it. Just copy the damn file and you're done. And it can't really leverage the hardware security. So that needs to be taken care of. And the problem we have is, whoops, animation. I hate animations. Look at the right side. That is what everybody can do without having the permissions to do so. The network admin can steal all the credentials. Network admins doesn't get paid well. So the only thing you need to do is go to them and say, you want money? Yes. Can you give me the domain controller? Sure. Should I zip it and send it? Or do you want to come and fetch it? You can zip and send. Split it in 700 megabyte files. Okay, here it is. Ugh. When it comes to application, one of the things they do in Server 19 is Compat Improvements, and I like that. And they do a lot of other things as well. Linux containers. Currently, there's actually more Linux machines running in Azure and Windows machines, which is kind of fun. They have a new Windows subsystem for Linux, which is kind of nice, and they optimize the images. How did they optimize the images for Server Core and Nano? Well, they ripped out everything that is useful for infrastructure and leaving everything that is useful for apps. That means that the image is now 10 times smaller, since it doesn't contain anything. System Center 2019. I told you that it's going to work. Windows Server is going to work in January. System Center 2019, which is the platform to manage it, will be available in January. That means that in realistic terms, if you do run System Center with Windows Server, you will be able to run this in production in February. Because it takes approximately a month for Microsoft to make sure that System Center actually works. The release date is one thing, then we have the other date, which is the working in real life date. That's about 1 month later. The really cool thing is the Windows Admin Center, actually. We're going to look at that. Looking forward, they're going to have 2 releases of Windows Server every 2 weeks. Semi-annual channel, twice a year. That's for application only. And then you have the long-term servicing channel. 16, 19, 21, 22 is going to be the next version. Oh, there's going to be a new version. Yes, yes. So that means that everything you do now to upgrade to the latest version of Windows Server needs to be redone again. Use script this time, because you can use the script next time, unless you really like the clicking around thing, which I don't really enjoy anymore. Let's look at Windows Admin Center a bit. Did I have it there? Yes, I had it there. So this is the Windows Admin Center. It's running on a demo machine right now. How many of you are using this right now? Anyone? 1. Okay, there's about 2 million servers managed by Windows Admin Center right now. That's the amount of people using it. It's a massive success for Microsoft. It's a web page, basically, that manages everything you want to do. It replaces, not really replaces, but it works together with all the other tools. Everything new that they develop, like storage migration, is only going to be available in 2 ways. You can either use PowerShell to manage it, or you can use Windows Admin Center. All the legacy tools, the RSAT tools, the MMC console, they will hang around for a while, but nothing new is ever going to show up in them. Everything else that they make is going to end up in Windows Admin Center. What you need to do when you go home is to install Windows Admin Center, period. Otherwise, you can't manage servers or clients for that matter either. So here's a machine. If I go to my Windows Admin Center here, I can add my machines. Of course, I need permissions. They all use remote PowerShell. Everything is remote PowerShell. And the really cool thing is that we've been asking them, is it possible for you to show us the PowerShell commands you run? No. Please? Okay. Here they are. Here is samples of every PowerShell command functionality they have. So if you want to create your own PowerShell scripts, you can steal these functions, because this is what they use within Windows Admin Center. And how do you steal them? You copy them, and then you paste them somewhere. It's not really complicated, like this. So if I go to the overview here, and I check this, they can show me that we have a bunch of functions, one of them being get server inventory. I can copy that, and I can paste it in PowerShell. That's the function, and it contains like 354 lines of PowerShell code, and it inventories the server, which is nice. I want to do that with my server, so I put that in a block, and I run it against my server in an invoke command. And then I'm using the code that is in Windows Admin Center, but I'm using it outside instead. Since they have everything, get hardware, get software, get app, get settings, get cluster, get whatever you want to get, you can use Windows Admin Center as a tutorial. steal the things they have, and build your own scripts. But I want to examine the script. Yes, you can do that too. And yes, yes, you can go through this and you can modify it if you want to, or you can just use it, which I do. That's fine. What can you do with this? Well, you can do a lot of things. One of the things you can do is restart, shut down, which is kind of nice, and you can also see performance data of this machine and things like that. But you can also, in this case, disable CredSSP, which is kind of nice. Or you can enable CredSSP, and you can do other things like just enough administration and just-in-time administration. You can actually do role-based administration. So instead of letting people log on using remote desktop, how many of you are using remote desktop? Okay. How many of you like the idea of taking your credit card, write the PIN code, and drop it in every bar you've ever seen? That's what you do when you use remote desktop. Stop doing that. It's the most insecure way to manage a machine. You use remote access. That means you remote and you use tools to remote in, because then you never leave your credential in that machine. Using remote desktop, yeah, that's pretty much like, here's my credit card, and by the way, the PIN code is in the other end, and I don't have any money left. How weird is that? Do I use remote desktop? Sure I do. In my lab environment. But I don't use it when I work with customers. I don't like to leave traces. You can do backup. You can deal with certificates. I like certificates, for instance. This is pretty cool. You can actually see exactly what certificates you have in the machine. Well, you can do that using an MMC console. Yes, I know. But what you can't see is the number of expired certificates and nearly about to expire. You can do that using Powershell, but then you need to write the code for that. Here's all the devices. How many of you have played with Core, Server Core, and tried to change the device driver? I need to update the storage driver. Yeah, just reinstall it. It's going to be faster. I know, but here we have them. Here I can actually go to my display adapter, and it's a whatever it is, and there's an update driver here. And I can either specify this is the driver I want to have, or I can run against Windows Update. So you can connect to any server without doing an RDP connection and change the driver. You can do this programmatically using PowerShell or PnP util as well, but sometimes you just need to change that driver, and you don't want to spend a couple of hours creating a PowerShell script for it. So using Windows Admin Center means that it really doesn't matter if you're going to use Core Server or not, since you never need to log on to them because you can do everything from here. Yeah, but I like my... Here's all the events. Files, I like files. Files is pretty cool. Remember, I'm accessing this in an HTML5 browser. It means I can't use IE. It's one of the few products that Microsoft has that doesn't support Internet Explorer. You really need to have Edge, which you don't really have on a server. So if you're on a server, you need to install Chrome to be able to use Microsoft products. But the idea is that you're supposed to use your workstation to do this, not log on to the server. But I can poke around in the operating system and on the hard drives here, and which is kind of nice. So that's the hard drive. I can go to the folder here. Can I do anything here? Well, I have actions here. And if I go to actions, I can create folder. I can upload files, and I can download files. So you can be in a cafe around here with internet access only and upload files or download files, create folders, move files. You have access to the entire file system through a web page, which is kind of nice. You can, of course, modify the firewall. And yes, you can absolutely cut yourself off the server access in no time. It's very simple. Just enable the firewall and block whatever port we are using, and you don't have a connection anymore. Is it going to warn you? No. It's just going to do it. Very simple. Here's all the applications. Well, application is... Can we install applications? Currently, no. Can we remove applications? Yes, we can. Fiddle around with users and groups. I can do anything I want to do with the network, including disable the network adapter, which kind of limits the way to access. But you can also add, in this case, an Azure network adapter. Because you can use Windows Admin Center to manage both Azure VMs as well as on-prem VMs. And they recently added support for 2008 R2. It doesn't have a great support for 2008 R2. It has a great support for 16 and above, but it works with 2008 R2. You can see the machine. But it does also give you PowerShell access. I like this feature very nice because it really gives me a PowerShell access in a web page. So, who am I? And where am I? Host name? Apparently, I'm an administrator on that machine, and I'm on that machine, and I'm using a web browser. I can actually access all the processes. I can fiddle around in the registry, and hey, I can do what I'm supposed to not do. I can actually do a remote desktop connection. I agree. Sometimes you really need to do that. If you really need to do that, you should use the local admin account, because the local admin account is not the same on all the other machines. Therefore, you're not leaving your credentials. But it's possible to log on with any command. So what it's going to do is that it's going to fire up the remote desktop connection application, which now works in HTML5. So you don't need to have the RDP client installed. It really opens this up in the web page. And no, it doesn't allow me to steal my credentials, so I need to type them in again. There goes. Oh, there you go. Very small screen, but you see the point. I can do this from a machine anywhere. Roles and features, schedule tasks, services, and storage, updates, virtual machines, switches. I can almost manage the entire machine. Now, can you access this in a secure way? That's a good question. Does it support multi-factor authentication? Yes, it does. Can we use Azure as authentication to reach into our... Yes, we can. We can configure to either use the local Active Directory, or we can use it to configure it to use Azure Active Directory. With or without multi-factor authentication, it's up to you. The port it's using is very simple. It's by default port 443, but you can specify another port if you want to. So is this more or less secure than SSL VPN? Same. Is it better or worse than remote desktop? Same, from a security standpoint. Doing a VPN and using the RSAT tools, better or worse? Same. It's just now we have one tool on one port to access everything, regardless of where they are, instead of having multiple tools. But I really like my Cisco VPN. Nobody likes Cisco VPN. A lot of people are using it, but nobody really likes it. If I go to here and open settings, You can see that here's the user account I have, and you can do language and region. You can even do advanced, and here we can add logging level, but here we have extensions. Extension is interesting because HP has extension, Fujitsu has extensions, and a lot of other vendors are adding extensions. You can even write your own extension because you can download the SDK kit, which means that now you can develop your own extension in PowerShell, compile it, and put it on either share or define the feed. But here we have Fujitsu Server View, data on, QCT management and containers and stuff like that. If you want to have them, you download them and then you install them. You have the ability to register this gateway with Azure. We do this for customers, meaning that we use our Azure account to access the gateway, and then I use a local account on-prem to access the machine. But that means I always need to have multi-factor authentication to access the customer machine. And then you can also define who are allowed and what they can do. And the reason why it's named Remote Honolulu Users is because this was used to be named Project Honolulu before. The idea is that Microsoft is now putting every effort they have into using Windows Admin Center as the UI for everything new they create. So everything software-defined, everything Hyper-V, everything hyper-converged, everything software-defined, whatever it's going to be, is going to be managed by Windows Admin Center. They don't even develop much of the traditional management tools. Does it cost anything? No. Free download. Does it work on Windows 10? Yep. Can it manage Windows 10 machines? Yes. Can you manage clusters? Yes. You can manage servers, computers, clusters, and hyper-converged clusters. So yeah, you can pretty much manage whatever you want to manage. They do a lot in storage. They are connecting it with Admin Center, of course, deduplication RFS volumes. They have mirror accelerated parity. They actually increased performance, and this is recorded, so I can't really tell you the details. But let's say that they increased the performance on mirror accelerated parity with 100%. That's good, right? 100%. So it went from kind of not very fast to slightly faster. To be very honest, it's an improvement. Mirror accelerated parity works perfectly fine for storing a lot of data. You don't run virtual machines on it. Then you use three-way mirror, because that is really, really fast. It's insanely fast. They added storage class memory support. That means that today an NVMe drive is really fast compared to storage class memory. No, an NVMe drive is a floppy. Storage class memory is a DIMM. There is basically no performance difference between RAM and storage class memory. Maximum size of them today is 512 gig. Yeah, they're going to increase that. I'm suspecting 2 terabytes of sizes soon, which means that we can build hyper-converged infrastructures using storage class memory together with old legacy SSD drives for capacity, and then we can increase performance. How fast do you think they can do storage spaces direct today? In 2016, the record was about 6 million IOPS on a 16-node cluster. 6 million IOPS, that's pretty good, right? So now they're running 12-node clusters with storage class memory and SSD drives, and they get about 13.6 million IOPS. And then you go home to your SAN and you measure that and you go like 4,500. Yes. We can even increase that 10 times. Yes, 45,000. And you compare that to 13 million IOPS, and then you compare the price, and it's still going to be cheaper to buy the 13 million IOPS. That's like having a Volvo D2 and say it's a fast car. No, it's not. It's a car, barely. I have one. I didn't have a picture of that. That's the car I used to and from the airport. That's the purpose of the car. Cluster sets. Instead of having a single huge cluster, we can now have 4-node cluster and combine them in a cluster set and manage them as one cluster, which is kind of nice. Storage migration service is another really cool thing. I need to remove that. It's a service that makes it possible to migrate old file servers to anywhere. They even support 2003 servers. Why? Well, because customers are still using that. It grabs the data from the old server, copies the data to the new server, steals the name from the old server, and flips it over to the new server. Permissions and files intact. Does it take a while to copy? No, it doesn't, because they're using block copy. They're using the same engine as they use for storage replication. So it's insanely fast. As long as the destination server is a 2019, if it's a 16 server, they need to use the old style, and then it takes about twice the time. You can also copy it to Azure if you want to. I don't want to, but you can. That's pretty cool. Let's check that out. So here we have storage migration services. I'm running on this machine. I added the services to this machine. This pops up every time, unless you select not to show it. And then we have a job. The job is very simple. You specify, I want to create a new job from that server to that server, from that folder to that folder. That's a job. But it contains all the configurations. I'm going to open the one that I already have here, and I'm going to use my stored credentials. In this case, I start with inventory the devices. I add whatever I need to add, and I scan that, and it tells me that this is what you have. Okay, cool. These are all the drives you have. Yes, thank you very much. Then you transfer the data from that server to that server, and you map the drives. In this case, I took the G drive and put it on the C drive, and the only folder that was replicated was public 2, 18 megs. And then you specify, if you want to do a validation, you could do a CRC 64, max duration, how many retries, you validate, you start the transfer. When you're done, you cut over to the new servers. You specify what's going to happen with the old one. Are they going to remove the old one? No. Do they remove any old files? No. Nothing on the old servers is touched. Besides one thing, it's going to be renamed, because the new server is going to get the old server's name. Therefore, mapping and, logon script. Anybody using logon scripts? Yeah, you are. Me too. Net use, G:. Specify that. You can also specify IP addresses and stuff like that. Cut over timeout, validate devices, and when everything is validated and everything is good, then you just run the start cutover. That's pretty much it. How many of these can you run simultaneously? I think they tried like 100 migrations at the same time or something like that. It's insane. And it works perfectly fine. So it scales to insanity. So you can really take that old server and migrate to 19 or even to 16. You just need to have a server 19 server as the orchestrator. Do I need to use Windows Admin Center? No, you can use PowerShell If you don't like to have a UI, you can do everything with PowerShell. Is there an MMC console for this? No. Will there ever be? No. Not ever. They throw in a bunch of things for SDN, virtual network peering, encrypted subnets. I have strange customers. Well, the individual is not strange, but the company is strange. They do things, which is weird. And a few of them is requiring very, very high security. And it's insanely what kind of security they require. And they also need to cover for things like bomb shells and hand grenades, because that could happen in those environments. So they do that. And the only way to build this really, really secure is actually to use hyper-converged together with software-defined networking, because then the physical network is encrypted, but all the virtual network is also encrypted. And that is one of the features they had. IPv6 support, stuff like that. So they're adding a lot of things for that as well, which is nice. For hyper-converged infrastructure, they still have only support for 16 servers per cluster, which is nice. Maximum drives is 416, nice. But they are bumping up the capacity from 1 petabyte to 4 petabytes. And you're going to go like, who will ever build something that is 4 petabytes? The largest so far was, we were forced to build 2 16-node clusters because we could only get 1 petabyte out each. So the largest I built is 2 petabyte. And now when we support 4 petabyte, we're going to grab everything we have and make it bigger. 400 terabyte raw capacity per server, 64 volumes, the max size is 64 terabyte. Nice. 13 million IOPS, and they also did this. Now they support what's called a true two-node solution. They did support storage spaces direct and two-node solution, but you can only lose 1 node. If you lost a drive on the other node when you're rebooting the first one, you were toasted. Where's my data? Gone. Now they do support the loss of 1 node plus a disk in the other node at the same time. They also fully resilient on the drives. You still need to have, and this is the fun part, you still need to have somewhere, because it's a cluster, you need to have a shared drive somewhere so you can have the cluster configuration. They now support the ability to put a USB stick in the router. And if you can share it as an SMB device, that's enough. So you don't need to. What company are using a router with the ability of... Exactly. The thing is that when you start asking around, most people go like, well, we have that. Really? Isn't that just home equipment? No, it's actually business equipment. So you can use that. So branch office, small office, they need to have highly available solutions. They need to be secure. They need to have good performance. You buy 2 machines, you get them together, you build a 2-node cluster, and then you need to have the quorum somewhere. Well, it's going to use this USB stick. You need to replace it every now and then because they get worn out, but that's it. So they did that. You need to have a certified hardware, and you can find that on WSSD. Unless you have a certified hardware, you're going to get a pop-up message saying you're trying to do something that we don't support and we don't like. There is a possibility for people playing and labbing, contacting Microsoft support to get the key and to avoid that kind of message. But in general, you should not run this on unsupported hardware. Yeah. Is there anyone running hyperconverged in here? No. You are? No? Okay. The only thing I've been installing the last 3 years is storage spaces direct hyperconverged. That's the only thing we have been installing. I haven't deployed a SAN. I can't even remember the last SAN I deployed for a customer. I've seen a SAN in pictures. I know how they look. I also know how much they weigh when you carry them out and throw them in the garbage bin. That is also something I know. But it's moving away from that. I mean, how many machines worldwide do you think really run on a SAN? Of every virtual machine around the globe, how many of them are running on a SAN? Less than 30%. Everything else is running on either local storage or some form of storage spaces direct, either from Microsoft or from VMware or from Linux. But the traditional SAN, that's like buying a steam engine. It's just very old. Now, you can manage it from here, which is kind of nice. So let's flip to this machine here and go to my Hyperconverged Cluster Manager. If I click really, really hard, and if I open that up, it's going to connect, and it's going to give me a dashboard. So what people are asking is that, is there any way to get an overview of the entire cluster? Can I see performance counters? Can I see alarms, events, and stuff like that? Pretty much like I can do with an Nutanix system or a VMware system or a SAN. Yes, yes, you can. Here it is. Pretty pictures and nice circle things that moves with different colors. I can get the same information using PowerShell, which I can use for any reason, but this is for the admin that likes pictures. And they are nice. You can have them on a big screen over here, like pictures, which is nice. What? Security. Yes, we need to have security. So what they do is adding a lot of things. Manage privileged identities, which is the most important thing. You need to protect your identities. You need to prevent credential theft. But it's not enough. We also need to secure both the host and the guest. They need to run on each other, but they need to be protected and secure. And we need to secure the entire network. It's not going to be secure by default. Running Hyper-V straight up works perfectly fine. I don't have any issues with it. Is it possible to break through? Yes, yes, I can actually export a VM while it's running and put it in my pocket and walk away. What do you have in your pocket? I have a domain controller. Okay. Thank you. Then I know. Just bad. So they are fixing a bunch of things. One of the really cool things is that they're adding 8021X support for the Hyper-V switch, which is some cases that's a requirement. And they're fixing VM Connect and PowerShell Direct. It's easier and simpler to deploy shielded VMs because they're shifting from a domain trust model to basically SSH key. So they're doing like Azure, but locally instead of doing the old style, which makes it better, simpler, easier, and actually more secure as well. Last thing is this, then I'm going to leave you alone. Have you measured performance in your life? And you go like, it says 4. Yes, yes. And the scale is from 0 to 1,000,000. Okay, so 4 is good. No. 3 or below. How do you know that? And how do you know if that is a sustained value or does it change over time? So what they did in Server 19 is that they added a little nice feature called System Insights. System Insights is a part of the operating system that you can enable, and it does predictive calculation of memory, of CPU, of disk usage, and calculates over time. So you can get a report that says, if you keep on doing this, your hard drive is going to be full in 297 days, 8 hours, 12 minutes, and 49 seconds. Just saying. That's plenty of time you can buy a new hard drive. It's worth when it says, you're going to be full tomorrow morning. Damn. That wasn't really planned. It gives you things like this. It's in here, System Insights. Only works in 19 though. You enable it. And as you can see, I didn't run it long enough. I've only been running this for a day. I should have run this for a week, but I couldn't because it didn't exist at that time. So we need to flip back here. And the settings are easy. You tell it what to do. The really cool thing is that you can also have actions on it. So what should it do if it gives you, the hard disk is getting full. What should we do? Turn off the machine. Then it can't be fuller or whatever. OK script, warning script, critical script, error script. Non-script, like that one. And then you need to specify your credentials. And of course, you should use the domain admin account where you type in the password and store it on the machine. Or maybe you have a local account for it. That could be a better idea. But you can see that here, which is, I like this. Anybody try, now, of course you haven't. Anybody seen this before? Do you think it's smart? I think it's smart because it beats the idea of having SCOM to collect all the data, send it to the cloud, and then do the calculation. This is the idea of having edge logic. There's something on the machine that can do these math and calculations and tell you the result immediately instead of sending it away. The first time I saw this, I was like, that's pretty cool. So that means I could continue talking about Windows Server 2019 for approximately the rest of the day, which I don't have. So thank you for watching this session. And if you do have any questions, I will be right outside the door immediately after we close. Thank you very much.